How do you respond when your entire world just changed? I'm serious. Think about it for a moment. Weeks ago, you weren't even thinking about social distancing or practicing isolation. Now, how do we network? How do we grow our business? How do we stay connected? Furthermore, how can we be of service during this time? Join our host, Tony Grebmeier, and today's guests as they share their best practices and insights to help you navigate the waters ahead. Welcome to Networking Remote.
Welcome to episode number 12 of Networking Remote 2020, a discussion of business, connections, and community. Throw a little twist in. This is going to be a great show for you. I'm excited today to have two of my dear friends. They're super close in my life. They've made both an impact in many different ways. They're leaders in the spiritual community. Their insights into the impact of COVID-19 and how to connect and support community comes from a fresh perspective. Chatting with these two today in some ways that we probably haven't had conversations on Networking Remote. So I'm excited for the laughs. I'm excited for their stories. I'm excited for their ideas on how we're navigating these waters. And as things start to open, kind of what the impact is that they're seeing firsthand and how a lot of ways things haven't really changed for them, more adjusted. So please welcome to the show, Ryan Canaday, Reverend of the Free Spiritual Community, and also Brandon Beard, pastor at Compass Church. Remember, we want you to participate today. So all you need to do is visit StreamYard.com/Facebook. Give us permission to share your information here when you ask a question, so you'll show up with a face, with not just an icon that says Facebook. So we want you in on this show today. So please welcome my two guests, Ryan and Brandon Beard.
What's up, everybody?
What's up?
Well, let's say first and foremost, I'm honored to have you both here. Just a little context to everybody watching today. I met Brandon almost 18 years ago, 19 years ago. Is almost as old as our company, ShipOffers, is. During 9/11, I was first, I was kind of asked like, hey, do you want to go to church? And I was like, I haven't been to church in a long time. I don't know if I need to go to church. And a neighbor, a good friend of Brandon's and mine, Matt Bailey, said, why don't you just come out and just check out church? And I'm like holding hands later the next day with somebody in a movie theater. And one thing led to another. Brandon has played an important role in both Amber and my journey, along with our kids' journey, kind of growing up in life. Amber's been honored to go on 2 mission trips with Brandon, Children of the Nations, over to Uganda. So that's been awesome. And then fast forward, I moved to Colorado. It's been almost 10 years since I've been here. And through kind of my life and program and everything, I got to meet Ryan Canaday. And Ryan has become a really, really dear friend and somebody who I think offers just a really unique perspective on life, both from his new project that he's really a part of and doing amazing stuff with his family, Free, the spiritual community for people that are addicts, people of loved ones of addicts, and then refugees who have been kind of, I don't want to put damaged, but kind of turned off by religion. And what I love about the two people you're going to really get a chance to hear from today is we're not going to talk about religion. We're going to talk about business, life, spirituality, and how you can just really connect with people. Why they're here? Well, first, Ryan has a bunch of tattoos all across his body. The only thing that isn't tattooed is his face, and I don't want to say it too loud because maybe one day he will get some tattoos on his face.
Do it, Ryan. We believe in you.
I might do it. You never know.
Come on.
So what I want to do first and foremost is just say welcome. Ryan, I would love maybe just how are you personally doing? And then kind of how you have been affected by, I think, the stay-at-home orders, and then how those things have kind of been released, and kind of just how are you doing personally? Then we'll shift to Brandon, and we'll come back.
Yeah. Thanks, Tony, for having us on today. It's good to be with y'all. And really important questions. So how I'm doing is, the truth is I'm doing fine. I'm doing okay. And I would be lying to you if I said there weren't some significant ups and downs. We're all learning a new way together. How many weeks are we? 9 or 10 weeks in now. We're all learning a new way. Yeah. This isn't a normal structure. We're off a schedule. We're getting new schedules. I was just telling Brandon when we jumped on earlier that, I have 4 kids at home now, school's out. So that's actually a blessing. That actually makes it harder. Summers used to be, it makes it easier. Summers used to be harder. Now summers are.
Ryan, you have to tell them how old your kids are, because all of you who are watching you'll fall asleep. You'll be so exhausted when you hear the ages of these kids.
We have a 9-year-old. We have a 7-year-old. We have a 4-year-old, and we have a 1-year-old. So there's constant chaos. But when it comes to the free and the church, a lot of people have said that, the church is closed down. The church is closed down. How often have we heard that? And what we're seeing is the church has never been about the building. The church has always been about the people, about the community. And so people are still staying connected. There's challenges to that. It's made it, we're, like I said earlier, we're finding new ways, but the church isn't the building. So what if the building's closed? We can handle that. We can still be community, and we're figuring out new ways to do that. And the church has always been about that since the first century, figuring out new ways to connect with people in very real ways. So, that's how I'm doing, man. There's some days that are exhausting, and we're tired, and we're staying up later, we're sleeping later. It's all over the place, and I'm doing okay.
I love it. I appreciate it. I mean, I can't imagine, Brandon, when he asked for the ages of the kids, I was like, all right, so summer camp. Not going to have summer camp this year, but if you have kids and you want to bring them to the Canaday's house, we can get summer camp program launched there, because they're good with the 4. So, Brandon, first and foremost, when I asked the question, how are you doing? I know you both know it's not surface that I'm looking for, so it's the depth, right? And then kind of how this transition has been over the. It's crazy. I think we're in week 13. I think that's what we're at about.
Something like that. Yeah. Yeah. How am I doing? I'm a pretty straightforward person, so I'll just shoot right to it. This has been really hard for me. Not hard professionally per se. I mean, there's been aspects of my job that are challenging in this thing, but personally for me, I'm just an extrovert. I need to be around people. And so this whole idea of being like at home and on Zoom calls, 24/7, it's been exhausting. And I found myself just not with a lot of motion in the tank. It's been hard to fill up the tank during this season, because for me to fill up the tank means getting out and being with people, being around people. But there's just something about being on a bunch of Zoom calls. You do 10 or 12 Zoom calls in a day. It's tough. At the same time, I'm really inspired. At the same time, so I'm really exhausted, and I'm totally inspired. I'm inspired by our organization and how we've been able to respond to this by serving people in the community and just making a difference. That has been inspiring to me, and I've been inspired just by the personal connection that people have tried to make. When this whole thing started, I told our whole team, "Hey, we're going to call everybody in our database personally. We're going to call them," which is so old school, right? We rely way too much on email and electronic communication and social media. So we just called everybody and just said, "Hey, we're going to check in on everybody and just see how they're doing, no matter what." So I've loved moments like that. That's been inspiring. We've served over 100,000 meals to people. That's inspiring. But I'm exhausted. To be honest with you, I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to need. It's like I need a vacation, but I don't want to be away from everybody. You know how a vacation kind of gets you away from everybody, and you're like, I'm not sure I need a vacation away from everybody. I've been on this, weird social experiment, is what it feels like.
When you're talking about connection and being an extrovert and kind of going out at it, I get that. I mean, we've chatted many times during this. Same with Ryan. We've chatted many times. Sports. I want to talk about it because I think it's important, specifically for you. You are a diehard Seattle Seahawks fan. Not
Let's
holding anything against
you.
Go
Hawks. Go Hawks.
But like this last weekend, there was a glimpse of sports back on television, right? I got a chance to hang with 2 of my dear friends. My childhood friend Kurt lives in Colorado, and then Doug, my business partner, and we social distance, sat it around and watched some television. But it was just good to have a little bit of that come back. Are you kind of getting excited knowing that there's some sports coming back, even if the fans are not allowed? Just are you excited for the idea of being able to see some of those things open up as well?
Absolutely. I mean, for me, you're talking about the match, right? You're talking about the match that was this weekend,
Yeah.
The golf tournament. Yeah. I think The Last Dance, the Jordan documentary, that's just been a way to connect with sports and have fun and have something to talk about. Was it LeBron or was it Jordan? That's been fun. Watching Tiger Woods and Tom Brady and all those guys out there. That was great. I love when one of my favorite moments of that was when Charles Barkley was just ripping on Brady, like, you're horrible, you're terrible. You're not. I'll play you. I'll give you strokes. And Brady hits a. I don't know how far it was, but he drains a long shot just in his face and just turns around and goes, "How you like that, Chuck? Take your medicine."
And then he split his pants and had to get
yes.
some new pants during that shot as well.
So you just love moments like that. So yes, I'm looking forward to sports. That's a great outlet for me. I'm a huge Seattle. Anything Seattle. If you're watching this right now in the chat room and you don't like Seattle, I'm so sorry. But if you're a Seahawks or a Sonics fan, even though they're gone, I still love the Sonics, the Mariners. I love anything Seattle. Just throw it in the chat room right now and say "Go Hawks" or whatever your team is.
I like it.
I've just turned this into a sports podcast. Here we go.
It's good. And then Ryan, I bet you are counting down the days until you can get in and get a new tattoo.
Hey, my shop is open. My guy's open. In fact, I have two people from Free went in this week and got tattoos. So from my guy. So he's open. Shout out to Julian at White Lotus. I'll come see you soon, brother.
I love it. All right. So we're talking sports and tattoos. And I want to talk a little bit business because I think it's life for a lot of people. And Brandon, what you just talked about, anybody watching this broadcast, you may be saying, like, what do I have to learn from two pastors, two people who run and are in churches, right? Well, Brandon just gave you, if you run a business and you want to get connected with your people, pick up a phone. Like, stop sending text messages and emails. Yes, it may be an easier way, right? Because it's like database driven, but old school, pick up the phone and have that conversation. I promise you're going to connect at a deeper level and they're going to understand that, you know what? Like, you just heard Brandon talk about that. I'm struggling a little bit, right? Like, it's been a difficult season. People are going to relate to that. So if you're running a business and you want to figure out how to really kind of like dive in and make something happen, pick up the phone and check in on your people. And I know, Ryan, you've been doing that as well. That's been a big part of, you had kind of just really got Free going and humming into a point where you were packing out your nights in your building. And then all of a sudden the order came in and then you went down to just the essential. I think you had 9 or 10 people on site to just help run this broadcast. But now your Zoom technology became this new way of kind of like doing your life, and then Facebook Lives and everything. So you've really been able to adapt during this time to really see your message, because it was kind of close to just a couple hundred people. And now you're touching thousands and thousands of people's lives. How's it been different for you to go from sitting in front of a small room to now knowing your messages is being heard all around the world?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's, it's expanded our vision. And again, to say the church was never about just gathering with people in a building. The church was always about serving people. 100,000 meals Brandon talked about. Like, that's being the church in action. That's what we need more of, to serve the community. So, and what we saw right away on our very first Facebook Live, when we went live on Saturday night, was how much more of an impact we could have. Like you said, we went from a couple hundred on a Saturday night to all of a sudden 2,000 to 3,000 on a Saturday night, and people tuning in from all over the country and saying how this is giving them hope, and how they can stay at home and connect with us from all over the place. That's a big opportunity for us. It's expanded our vision to say, wait a minute, maybe the thing is way bigger than we thought it was. And I think that's a constant, not to get too biblical on y'all, but we constantly see those stories in scriptures of people say, wait a minute, maybe the whole thing is way bigger than you thought it was. And maybe God is doing something here that's just mind blowing. And I don't want to make light of the situation. There's lots of tragedy happening. I mean, we're getting close to 100,000 deaths. We'll probably hit that by tomorrow from COVID-19. So we are in a period of grief, and the church should take that very seriously, this period of grief. But it doesn't mean that it's all doom and gloom. We have to experience and find light along the way. And I think that's happening.
We started talking really about the transition for you from kind of like in person to this online world. I remember having that conversation. I'm like, man, just go for it. Just like flip it, see what happens, get your message out there, because the world needs to hear. Anybody watching right now saying, I have a message, I don't know if I should share it. I mean, that's part of what I love about these two gentlemen right here. They'll be the first to tell you, I'm like, you're going to go through seasons. We all go through seasons of life. Everything that I've gone through, many know me personally, know that, you know, I've struggled for many years. I was against the church, not in a negative mindset. I kind of felt like God abandoned me. And I'm so thankful for a gentleman by the name of Brandon, who was so kind and gracious and said, hey, you know what? The church has been praying for you, Tony. And I remember calling Brandon. I'm not sure where you were at. You were at some event, and I called, and I could just hear some tears coming down your face of like, thank you for calling. And then we did some work, and I just got a chance to connect with Kyle Eidelman last week, and I was telling him a little bit about his H2O series. And I said, if it wasn't for Brandon walking me through the H2O series and the dead man walking scenario, because that's how a lot of people right now are walking, unfortunately, through life. And I just equate it to, I think I gained like 25 pounds in the first 3.5, 4 weeks of COVID. I was just I was inward diving. I was like, all right, cool. I'm going to eat tons of food. I don't really care anymore. And then when I realized, I'm like, well, wait, there's a lot going on that I need to be here for. So let me turn that mindset into like getting healthy and shifting it. But what I saw so far in the last 2 weeks, and this is what I want to focus on for the next couple of minutes with both of you, is now that the world's opening back up and things are getting back to, there's no new normal, just so we know. We're just dealing with life one day at a time. In Missouri over the weekend, house parties, boat parties, full on festivals. And I'm like, all right, people, we are healing. And how do you flip the script and go all the way back? That's too far, too fast. So what I want to do, Ryan, because I know that you get these questions asked, you know, can we go back to coming into church? Brandon, I know that you were talking the other day, like, I think you guys are going to hold off for a couple more weeks. Like, so I want to kind of talk a little bit about the transitions that you are seeing personally, but then also from a professional standpoint of the things that are being asked of you, because I know that they're shifting. So the question really is, now that the world is like in phase 2, phase 3, and different places are doing different things, how are you seeing it personally for yourself? And then what are your ideas about reopening like the congregation, the church, inviting people back in? You know, let's talk about that. Brandon, you go first, and then we'll go to Ryan.
Okay. For me, this is a moment, and I know, Tony, your audience is primarily business people. So it's, kind of looking at that through that lens, but I think there's really something to learn there, even from people like Ryan and I, who are trying to navigate this and trying to figure out how to connect with people, just like businesses are trying to do. You're trying to connect with people, but you're also going, okay, we've been online. Now what do we do? That things are opening up a little bit more. For us, a big guiding principle is this: we just recognize that there are people on opposite ends of the spectrum. Okay, there are people who are super cautious and freaked out and very scared, and rightfully so. I mean, hundreds of thousands of people have died, right? So this is tragic. It's horrible, and so there's that end of the spectrum. On the other end of the spectrum, you've got people, and I'm not making light of any of these, by the way. I'm going far ends of the spectrum here, and there's all in between. On the other end, you got people who are like, hey, give me a hug. We're good. This is a hoax. Bill Gates is trying to put chips in our arms, and and you're just like, okay, and they just don't care, right? They're just kind of like, I'm over it, and they don't buy any of it. And the reality is, we've got to be accepting and loving to all those people, no matter where they are, and understand that those people are coming to us with all those different perspectives. And so what we're doing is we're putting protocols in place to let people know, hey, here's what's going to happen. It's going to be safe. It's going to be clean. Here's how we're going to do this. But the most important message throughout this whole thing is, hey, we're ready when you're ready. And that's kind of been our tagline. We're ready when you're ready. Meaning it's not about, hey, come back to the church building. We don't care if they come back to the church building. We just want to connect with people where they are. And for some people, we recognize that the world's going to change. There's going to be a lot of people who continue to connect with us online, and there's going to be people who connect with us in person. We anticipate that our in-person numbers will be lower, but guess what? Not worried about that whatsoever. We're excited about what's going to happen online. But I think the real key to that is the heart behind saying, hey, no matter where you are in that spectrum of like freaked out or don't care or kind of flippant about it, you're welcome here. And we're going to teach tolerance and encouragement of all these different perspectives, and not like use the stage for some sort of pandemic theology. That's not what we're about. We're about caring for people. And I think businesses that do that and really make it about people, I mean, we all know that they're going to thrive. And the ones who make it about the rules, and here's all the rules we're going to follow, and you have to do this and you have to do that, that's where you get yourself in big trouble, because you're just saying, hey, we're with one side or we're with the other.
Yeah, I mean, it's like why there's a couple of things that I don't ever get drawn into. I don't get drawn into religion on Facebook, social media. I don't get drawn into politics on Facebook, or social media. And I really just remind myself, like if I lead with my heart, I'm in a much better place, right? And you got to love and have compassion for people. I may not agree with what's going on or how people or businesses are taking it or handling it, but the reality is I got to do what I'm asked to do if I want to participate. So just like we have a sign posted, no public allowed. Like we have a flat out sign, this is no public allowed. Like that's our policy. And then inside there are signs, stations for hand sanitation.
Yep.
Like everything's being taken care of to protect every individual. And then if I walk out without my mask, someone looks at me going, hey, you need a mask. I'm like, thanks for the reminder. Right. So we're all learning through the process. Ryan, you're up.
Yeah. Tony, you mentioned Lake of the Ozarks in Missouri. That's my hometown. That's where I'm from. So
what's going on with your people?
I don't know what
I saw you in the video, Ryan. I saw you there.
You saw me there. No, I grew up on that lake. I love that lake. I love the people there. But what we're seeing is this isn't, and I am as much of this as anybody. I want to be an outlier. I mean, tattoos obviously say that. I want to push the church in new directions, and I want to push boundaries. And this is not the scenario where we want to be outliers. This isn't where we want to be leading the way. At least that's where I am right now. But here's what's really interesting. I've had people come to me and say, man, this is great. I can do church right in my living room on TV. And hey, we may not be coming back. We may just do the TV thing. And that might last for a little bit. I'm not convinced that's the truest form of connection, because what we know is, and I've had lots of people tell me this, I feel lonely. I feel unseen. I feel like I'm totally in the background now. And I think we have not had a serious conversation about how social distancing is going to have long-term impacts on people. We just heard Saturday night at Free with our guest expert, who's a PhD in this stuff in the mental health field. It was a simple fact, but an important one. We need 8 hugs per day. We are wired for human connection. We're actually wired to touch people, to be physically connected. So not being physically connected, it's going to have an impact. How it's going to impact our kids when they go back to school, this new world. But isolation, the Surgeon General said it was just a few years ago that isolation is a new epidemic in our country. That isolation and social disconnection is killing people. Isolation is the same. They're saying the effects are the same as smoking 15 cigarettes per day. And so it's going to have some long-lasting consequences. I don't know what they are yet. But so as pastors, I think we're stuck in the middle. And I posted this meme on Facebook just the other day. And Brandon, you nailed it. We have people coming to us saying, you can never open the church up. You need to keep it closed forever. And then people saying, we need to open it right away. We need to get back together, and it's all a hoax, and let's connect. So as pastors, we're in this interesting position of how do we care for people on all sides of the spectrum, because we have different experiences, different perspectives, different political leanings, and it has become political. Isn't that weird? It's become a political thing.
Oh, it totally has, 100%. And the great thing for having you here today, like I knew 2 things were going to happen. You're going to bring out the best people, and you're going to bring the worst in people. And I've already saw it. Like if you troll on Facebook and you see it, the comments come, and there's a lot of, I love Jim Rohn's quote, and I always probably mess it up, but there's only 7 or 8 miserable people in this world. They just seem to move around a lot. I'm reminded of that. But I'm also reminded that the rest of the world is really, really good. And there's a lot of great people. And, I was riding my Peloton this morning, and I was just was in deep thought a little bit. And I just saying, there's a lot of negative self-talk out there too. What's the self-talk, Brandon, that you've had conversations just with yourself, not going to mainstream media, not the church, just some negative self-talk? And then how did you flip the script and turn back into the light of positivity? Because that, I think anybody listening today, business, doesn't matter what you do, that's going to be huge, because I have negative self-talk around all this stuff.
Yeah. I mean, for me, Tony, I'm tired, and I'm sure people will resonate with this. I'm tired of feeling like I should respond to all the craziness around me, like all the things that are happening. People are saying this, people are saying that, people are saying this, and I don't want to be an apologist for the COVID-19 pandemic. I'm not an expert. I'm not a doctor. I don't have a clue. So, for me, some of the self-talk for me has just been what really is effective? What does effectiveness look like? Like, what does it really look like to help people? I mean, we're feeding literally over 100,000 people we fed in the last 11 weeks. It's been incredible. Every week we're doing feeding programs. We're helping low-income families. We're helping single moms. We're helping all that stuff. But long-term, you just have to look yourself in the face and go, okay, things have got to change. So what's going to change? But for me, just to flip that back, for me personally, I have struggled just relationally. I have just struggled just feeling like I'm just tired of the routine. And so it's not helping my relationship, especially my family. I just want to be, and then you're like, okay, well, how do I do that in this context? How do I improve my family relationship? And how we do that, maybe in the past is we say, well, I'm not feeling super connected, or I'm kind of tired of being all in the same house cooped up. So let's go out to a movie, or let's go out and do this, we'll do an activity. And we have something we say in my world, we don't want to be experience rich and relationally poor. And I think that's kind of in my mind, as I just keep going, man, am I just all about experience? That's kind of am I just do I need that experience to be happy? Can I just have relationships without going out and doing all this stuff? And that's a big slug in the gut to say, hey, I've got to look at those relationships and figure out if I can make those work outside of hey, let's go out and do a bunch of activities. I hope that makes sense, but
no, it makes perfect sense. And I mean, I want you to say it one more time, because I want to get that as a quote. We're going to put that in the
yeah, it's not my quote. That's an Andy Stanley quote. He talks about children actually. And he says, you don't want to raise kids who are experience rich and relationally poor. And it kind of talks about this whole thing as a parent, where you're like, hey, we go on vacation 5 times a year and our kids get the best experiences, and we go rock climbing and we do this and this and this. We've been all over the place, but we got families who don't love each other. They don't know how to have a real conversation. They don't know how to sit down and look at each other and have conflict with each other. Everything just gets masked by the constant experience rich, and there's a real relationship poor thing going on. So that's very convicting to me, because I am such an active, I love going. You mentioned the Seahawks. Man, I love going to a Seahawks game, right? And I love being in 70,000 fans and screaming and going crazy. It's such an amazing experience. My kids and I are all high-fiving. But man, I hope that's not what they took away from living in our house.
No,
I hope you know what I'm saying?
You watch,
and there's nothing wrong with that, by the way. There's nothing wrong with the experiences. You just got to make sure relationship is really here. And I think all too often we say, oh, no, relationships are number one. And you're like, no, that's bull. That's not true.
You were created for connection.
Yeah.
So then you disconnect from all of that, and you all go hide in your room or get on your devices.
Yeah.
And I've been known to do that, so I'm not blaming anybody but myself, right? Because
sure.
I remind myself every single day, for things to change, I've got to change, and for things to get better, I got to work on being a better person, right? Because I can't blame Brandon for not calling me when I'm not calling Brandon, right? It's like I got to put my best foot forward and do the hard work. And so I really appreciated you bringing some context and clarity. Remember during the match that was going on this weekend, right? And I think when Brady made that hole in one, or not, whatever that was, the eagle shot, he went to go high five and he stopped.
Yeah.
Is that the next version of our life? I'm like, hey, oh, I got to pull it back. So it's just going to be interesting. And that's another Jim Rohn thing that I say all the time. Isn't that interesting? When someone says something or does something to me, I just say, isn't that interesting? And then I just keep moving forward. Ryan, I think it's important, man. I want to know, like, from that level, no sugarcoating things. And I know that you're kind of the opposite of Brandon and I a little bit. You're good with being in, and you're quiet, and you're always in, like, what I like to call observation mode. You're always observing. So on that level, how are things?
Here's the question I've had to ask recently, and it's an uncomfortable question. But I think if we're honest, all pastors and leaders and creators have to ask this question: how do you lead when you don't feel inspired? So it feels like we're expected to have a response to all this, and we're expected to bring hope and high energy, and we're expected to bring the good news. And what do you do when you don't feel very inspired to inspire other people? What do you do when you don't feel much hope, or you're not feeling like, I don't have anything to say today? And I've had those days more during COVID-19 than I did in the past. I don't have anything to say today. I'm walking it the same as you guys are walking it. I think my best option is to keep walking it with you. And I've had to learn, because I am more of an introvert. Introversion is kind of my go-to. Picking up the phone is something I have to work on. Taking calls is something I actually have to put out energy towards. And it doesn't mean I don't like to not be around people. People get that confused, extroverts and introverts. I love people. I love leading people. And yet when I go home, I'm exhausted. I need to go to sleep. I need to recharge. I need some alone time.
It's interesting. Most people don't think that really is what's really going on, right? They can't figure it out. But I've had that happen more and more as I poured out to people. Brandon, I know that you used to talk about that all the time. You're like, man, I just need to go home, like sit on the couch and like watch some reruns of like something so I can just like chill for a moment. I know, Ryan, that's big for you as well. And anybody watching right now, if you're going through, and Brandon, I use this language all the time. He always talks about seasons. We're all going through a season, right? We're all going through something. So it's going to be different for everybody, but the same reality is for everyone, is that we have a way today, at least I do. I didn't know this a long time ago. I didn't know that I needed to make sure I had good relationships with solid people in my life. That is like one of the most important things that I have made sure to have more than probably anything else, is a really deep relationship. My wife and I, we're better today than we were a year ago. And nothing that was wrong a year ago. It's just because we're inward diving to get to know each other. I mean, we were empty nesting. Brandon, one came or is about to leave, and one's maybe home, and you've got all this change going on. So that whole idea of what your life was like, you're looking at Irene going, hey babe, it's just you and me, and now you're like, well, the kids are back. It's like reverse. So I wanted to talk just for a moment, because Ryan mentioned 4 kids, and I know you have 2. You have one who just went through this graduation process. What was graduation like for Nick, and how did you guys help Nick to Doug, my business partner, we were talking about it last night around the table, just talking about college is one thing to graduate from, but I think high school is the one that's so important, and how difficult that must really be. So I'd love to know, and just send some love Nick's way.
Yeah, it's interesting because Nick was my son. He's a senior, and he obviously, as Tony mentioned, is getting ready to graduate. They're actually going to do a graduation at the outdoor stadium, Tony, which is crazy. This is kind of new information. You know how COVID, right? Everything changes. But everything's been really unique. I will say this, and I don't think Nick will mind me talking about this. And if he does, too bad. We're live, so here we go. I think to an 18-year-old son will say, "Hey, it's not a big deal. I don't care. I'm done. I'm ready to be done with it. Yeah, I'm ready to be done with high school. I don't care if we do the ceremony. I don't care if we do any of this stuff. I'm just ready to be done. Kind of over it, because we've been in lockdown since March. We came home from spring break. 2 days later, we didn't go back to school. That was it. So I think that there's some difficulty for him in that he's missing stuff. But honestly, I think it's been harder on the parents. I think it's been harder on us. I think those like ceremonies and all that stuff, I think he was ready. But I do think this is what I'm getting at. I do think there's a part of him that's sad, but doesn't necessarily know how to express it.
Mhm.
You know, because, and I think that that's all of us are kind of facing that same kind of emotional challenge right now, because I can get on social media and, you know, and be like, oh, I'm so bummed I'm missing my son's graduation. Oh yeah, well, 300,000 people are going to, you know, plus people have died so far since January, you know, or whatever the number, it's just a huge number. And so it just turns into this whole like, well, you shouldn't be upset because you're missing out on something because so many people have lost life, you know, and so it just turns into this. So I think that emotionally is what's been hard for the seniors. Someone like a senior, just using a senior as an example, they're missing out on something, and there's some like sadness there, but there's also some like, well, I don't have COVID-19, or my parents didn't die, or, you know, there's not a huge outbreak in our community, thankfully. So then you're like, do I feel sad, or do I have bad perspective if I don't? And I think you guys understand what I'm saying. It's not, I would never pick on someone for being sad, but I think that there's a emotional seesaw there
No,
of
and
sadness
and
and
you're
then
talking
perspective.
about you talked about something, and I want to acknowledge it because I think you said, you know, the kids may be fine with it, right? Because the like, hey, it's graduation, I go hang out with my friends, but there's like a chapter, right? And it doesn't matter if your kid's graduating 6th, moving into 7th. There's the clap out. I remember that was when our kids were going. You get to clap them out.
Yep.
Amber and I were out riding bikes the other day, and we passed a school. I think it was Mile High Academy, and they had all of the senior signs lined with their faces. I'm like, what an interesting perspective. And the first thing I said is like, you know, are you going to come by and pick up your sign? Like, you know, because like for me, I collect mementos in my head. Like I
Yeah.
collect them, and I want those things. Those are the moments that I cherish. I mean, I'm coming up on my 30-year high school, you know, reunion. You know, so those are the things that I think about. Ryan, I mean, what was transition for you like? I mean, any of your kids? They're 9. So what grade are we talking? Second, first to
We're
second?
talking third grade, first grade, preschool. Um, you know, there have been some transitions, probably lighter transitions than in your world, Brandon, and in your world, even Tony. But I think it's for parents. For us, it's considering what is this going to look like next year and the next year, and is this just the way it is? We're getting guidelines for the fall, and it's like, oh my goodness, they're part of me wants to say they're losing their childhood. They're going to be scared of people. I mean, there's this underlying current that says be fearful of your neighbor, and I get it all. I mean, I get the face mask, I get the social distancing. I'm not knocking that at all, but part of it is going to be how are they going to? They can't just run up and give their teacher a hug. They can't. eh, Um, they can't hug their friends at school. They've got a social distance. So I think for us as parents, it's taking seriously the idea of what is this going to look like in the long term, in the long run, and as parents, how do we want to coach our kids? How do we still teach love and kindness and compassion? How do we keep those values central? Um, so that's I don't know. I think that's
Do
kind of the
you
transition.
think do you think homeschooling is a good option for you now?
We're not going to do it just because it's no. But it's funny you
I,
ask that. We've heard people entertain that idea of maybe we should, maybe we travel, maybe we do this. The Canadays aren't going to do that, but yeah, I think we're going to see an uptick of it. I think we're going to see some of it.
Well, I mean, schools, you know, Brandon, you get these little emails from the colleges. They're like changing everything. I mean, college, you know, small towns may not have a university or a college there anymore the way that it was, and they're going to go online. I mean, 2 more questions, and then we're going to get ready to the last round. But 2 quick questions. Let's fire them off. What is the biggest shift you've seen in your community? Number 2, the second question for you to answer is, where do you see us in the next month? I'm not asking you to be Nostradamus and predict the future, but where do you kind of feel like we're headed? All right. Those are the 2 questions. Ryan, you can go. Mr. Canaday.
I'm sorry, man. You cut out for a second. I didn't catch that last question.
Where
Can
do
you
you think
repeat
we'll
it?
be in a month from now? I mean, I know they were not Nostradamus and we're trying to predict the future, but where do you think we'll be in a month from right now?
You know, I think we're still going to be in struggle mode. I think you're going to see. I think you're going to see a lot of some of the repercussions of social distancing. I think it's going to have a toll on people's emotional health and well-being. I think you're going to see isolation on the rise. In my community, we're going to see addiction on the rise. We're already seeing it. We're already seeing relapse on the rise. I think that's going to keep going up. That's the bad news. And we have to take seriously the bad news if we want to get to the good news. The good news is, I think what we're also going to see in the next month is this a continued hunger and craving for connection, a continued kind of realization that there's something bigger going on here, that I'm not the one in control of my life, that that God is somewhere, somehow in the midst of all this, and we're all hungry and craving to be on a spiritual journey together. So I think you're going to see a rise in the need for God and spirituality, and you're also going to see a rise of suffering, and real suffering that's going to impact our community. We have to take that seriously, but it puts us in this again a really interesting position as leaders, as pastors, as the church. How are we going to step in and meet needs, the real needs of our community?
You talked about addiction on the rise. I mean, how much more stuff has been exposed? Abusive marriages.
Yes,
you talked about sex trafficking. A lot of things are being exposed more so because a lot of people are stuck at home, and a lot of these things get exploited that way. I can't even imagine what you two have literally gone through for the last 12 weeks. And I know you speak for a small portion of a large population. The phone calls, the text messages, the fears, the uncertainty, the unknowns, the doubts. I heard the other day there was a line of cars, getting meals, and those cars were Mercedes. Those were Ferraris. Those were people. They're not just the Joe Schmoes that you think would be sitting in the line, barely pushing a stroller down the road trying to get their food. I mean, everybody's been affected in some sort of way. So, Ryan, your message holds near and dear to me. I'm an addict, so I get to talk that way. I get to talk in the language of, that's my story. Brandon knows very much my story. Ryan, you know very much my story. And I hate hearing about relapses. I hate hearing about all the abuse, and there's so much depression going on too. There's so much, people look in their bank account and they're like, I don't have anything. I don't know. So I want to let Brandon answer the question. I'm going to come back. We're going to close with that. I think what Ryan just brought up is the most important point we're going to close with today. I want to know how we handle that. But Brandon, let you go first. We'll come back and we'll close out with that.
All right. What you're asked, what do I think is going to happen the next month?
Yep.
I agree with everything Ryan said. I'll just add a few more things to it, basically, on top of it, not in competition with it whatsoever. I think what's going to happen in the next month is there's going to be a lot of I told you so talk, and finger pointing, because people are hurting. People's businesses are hurting, or some people are doing fine, right? And so the people who are doing fine are like, told you so, not a big deal. And the people who are hurting are going, it's your fault. It's your fault. And so I think there's going to be a lot of assigning blame. I told you so, finger pointing. Our country is very divided. It's very sad. It breaks my heart. But more so, I think that division leads to what Ryan's talking about. It leads to families struggling and doing that. So that's what I think is going to happen. What I'm going to add just one thing to it. You know what I hope happens, just to base on what Ryan talked about? If you're watching this right now, and I don't care if you think the two pastors on here are just nuts, which is totally fine. If you think we're just Ned Flanders and we're not going to preach at you, that's all good. But if you just think we're crazy, here's what we're going to ask you to do. Tony is on here because he asked for help. Tony is successful in business because he asked for help. When he was struggling, when his addictions were wiping him out, he asked for help and he got help. And so it doesn't matter like what you believe or what, if you're a Democrat or Republican, it doesn't matter if you're conservative, liberal, or you hate church or love church or you're whatever. That doesn't matter right now. Push all that stuff aside. Whatever you're struggling with, ask for help. If your marriage is struggling, addiction issues is coming up, if you've relapsed, ask for help. You got to do it. I believe there are two types of people in the world. There's people who ask for help and there's people who don't, because we all fail. I fail tremendously. I fail all the time.
When you came to my house, Brandon, Amber and I we were, she knows it. We talk about it. We were messed up. We were separated for almost 3 years. I caused a lot of the frustration and the pain. And I remember we were sitting like social distancing at the time too. I think that was even an appropriate term. You were on that side, Amber was over there, and I'm in my chair. And you looked at us and said, if you really want to work on this thing, we got to take the D word off the table. We got to take the word divorce off the table. You can't fix anything when everything you throw at everything is, well, I'm out of here. I'm gone. I'm running. I don't want this anymore. And it took me getting to my lowest bottom to realize that's what actually I wanted. I just was using words that I was hearing society throw around, and then they became words that I started spitting out of my mouth, believing that's what I wanted, when the reality was that's not what I wanted at all. And that's why I think it's so important. And I just want to say thank you, Ryan and Brandon, for being here today. It's not supposed to be the most watched episode. It's not supposed to be the most commented episode. You know what this really is? There's a lot of people silently watching. And that's what I've come to realize when we talk about the stuff that is at the heart, the who you are. Not everybody's going to raise their hand and say, me too. But they're saying to themselves privately, man, I relate. And I've learned it because I've done this for long. I know that the way that impacts of messages reach the masses is when I ask for help. And so I want to say thank you for both of you, because in your own unique ways, you've answered my prayers. When I was at my lowest point, Brandon, you were the second person that came running. John Montazeri was first. You came to the next day. I talk about all the time. You sat and shared for 45 plus minutes when I was sitting going, I think my life's over. And you're like, I think your life's just beginning. And I needed to hear that. And when I came to Colorado and I was alone and scared, I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to do this. I don't know anybody. Little by little, I met in a basement. One thing led to another. And I got a chance to meet a pastor at a church. And I got to meet Ryan and build just a really great relationship with a guy who has a big heart and really cares about helping people who've been hurt. I mean, he lost his brother from addiction. So the message hits home. And then I realized, you know what? And it was said last night at our dinner table, guys have the hardest time asking for help. Their ego, it's like there's like this thick armor. They're like, I got this all figured out. And the reality is, man, I need help, and I need help every single day. And I need help from for me, it's God, but I need help from pastors. I need help from my family. I need help from my friends. I need help from people I don't know. And so what I want to do for the next 5 minutes, 2 minutes, 50 seconds each, or whatever, if I can do math, I just really want to have a conversation. 2 minutes and 30 seconds or something like that. Ryan, you're up first. I want to talk about, how does somebody ask for help? I think this is an important question. It's not just as saying like, I need help, call 911, I need help. That is scary. I want to know how can we take a step today to helping ourselves first and getting some help. I don't care what you're going through in your life. COVID, family, marriage, drugs. You're thinking, you know what? I need a new career. I don't know what it doesn't apply to. I think it applies to everything. How to be a better parent. What does it take to be a better friend? So I thought, hey, let's close the last 2.5 minutes or so with each of you and bring me your best stuff of like, what can we do today? Some practical things that maybe you'd give to somebody if they were sitting in your office and you were having a conversation.
So here's where I would start. Pick a few people in your life. I used to tell myself, no, you can only be close to this many people. You can't be close to a bigger amount of people. And what I've learned is you can have deep conversations with lots of people, but pick a few of those people who you trust, who you know they love you and they're for you. They've got your back, and be open and honest with them, and be willing to tell them. This has made a big difference in my life. When I'm willing to tell them, hey, I'm not doing well. I feel like I'm barely hanging on here. I'm not doing well. We've got to get better. Men have got to get better at saying that I'm not doing well. Vivek Murthy, who I keep talking about loneliness, and he's kind of the leader in the loneliness project right now, but he talks about how the leading category of loneliness is middle-aged men. Middle-aged men are not good at reaching out. So pick a few people in your life and be willing to get real and honest with them and trust them. Trust them and take some suggestions from them, and then keep doing it. Keep those people in your life. Don't just reach out when you need help. Reach out. And Tony, you lead the way in this, and I thank you for it. Tony FaceTimes. You just get a quick FaceTime from him in the morning, and I hate it, and yet I love it because I know there's something to do with that human connection, and I need it.
Yeah.
So part of it is taking the first step and reaching out to people, especially when you're not doing well, and saying, hey, I'm not doing well. I need some help, because we need relationships. And men, we need deep relationships where we can get real and honest. And I'll close with this real quick. I can't tell you the number of men I've encountered in the past 8 weeks, grown ass men who have said with tears in their eyes, I need a hug. And it's said like quietly, and it's said hoping no one sees them. And even with social distancing, I'm gonna bear hug those guys because they need it. It's mental health. It's like like our lives kind of depend on it. Don't do it stupidly. And I hope there's no shame that comes with this. But man, just to see men do that, it's powerful, because the walls are coming down. And y'all know we can build up these walls and try to keep them up, and we're good at it. And on the outside, everything looks fine, but the interiors are crumbling, and we've got to get better at letting those walls fall.
Thank you. I appreciate it, man. And I need one of those big bear hugs too. You know, the thing that you brought up, and then we'll shift to Brandon. Yeah, a lot of us men, you know, we say a lot of things like in our head, right? It's an inner game for all of us, and that's just life. But like, you need people, and you need connection and compassion, and you need somebody to say, it's okay, I'm going through that too with you. And those are the type of men that I want you to like seek out to if you're a man. I can't speak to a woman. It's not me, but you can go find strong women to latch onto and guide you. There's a lot of amazing people in this world that are up to amazing things. And if it wasn't for this next person to take us home today, I don't know if I'd be here. I really don't. I really, multiple occasions when I remember I was at a church retreat one time with you, and I was sharing my story, and I remember somebody from the audience said something, and you just came quickly to save. I'm like, hey, just move it along. These aren't the stupid people you're looking for. There's wise people out there. And
that was a great moment.
And I need to remind myself today, anybody watching, I've been there. I don't know exactly what you're going through, but let's do life together and not do it alone. I know we're better for people like for Brandon and for Ryan. I'm better because of people like them who have taken a stand, who in a lot of ways said, hey, you know what? I'm going to go out and do what I love, and I'm going to deflect all the negative talk to somebody else, because I just know that at the core, Brandon, you're probably one of the realest pastors I've ever been around. I tell your Smashing Pumpkins story all the time. So I thought we would close with you telling the Smashing Pumpkins story for just a minute, and then you can take us home with the addiction, because I think the Smashing Pumpkins story ties really good into how we're going to close today with your message.
So when I threw him over the fence?
Yeah. And then what happened?
Oh my gosh, that's greatness. That's greatness. You're ratting me out. Well, I do. I just think, like Tony said, this may not be the most watched deal, but if one person watches this and is encouraged to get help and doesn't give up and goes after that addiction, stays in that marriage, man, that's what it's all about. That's my hope. That's really my hope through this deal. Because here's what I know. I know Tony's all about helping entrepreneurs and helping people be successful and having a positive attitude and doing that. You can't do that if you're not healthy inside. You can't. And again, I said it earlier, I'll say it again. Ryan and I are not here to push Jesus on you or push church on you or something like that. I mean, we're all about that, by the way. Okay, we're all about it. But we're all about you. We're all about you as a person getting healthy. And we want to help you. And even if you're just like, no, you guys are crazy. Man, we don't want someone to take their life. We don't want someone to give up. So as far as asking for help and how you do that, this is one of the things I would say. Man, don't trust your feelings. Don't trust them. Because right now, you probably feel like I'm a loser. I relapsed. My marriage is a mess. My business is a mess. I don't have any money. I feel like trash. And what you got to do is you got to find someone to speak some truth into your life. You got to find someone who can say, hey, listen, I know you feel that way, but this is what's true, is that you are a person of value and you matter. And you might feel like, well, no one cares about me. That's not true. That's not true. Tony G's on here doing this episode because he cares. People that are part of his network are involved in that network because they care. They're chiming in and they're chatting and they're commenting and trying to encourage each other to thrive through a difficult time right now, not just relationally, business-wise. And so my hope is that if you're watching this, that you'll just say, hey, no matter how I feel, I got to find some truth in my life. I got to find someone to speak truth into my life. That's why you go to AA, by the way. That's why you sit down and go, oh, there's something outside of my feelings, right? That's true. And that could be spoken into my life. And I'm not alone. And that's the second thing I would tell you is you are not alone. Sounds cliche, sounds whatever. Don't care. You're not alone. You're not alone. You're looking at three guys on the screen here. I know a little bit of Ryan's story, but I know Tony and I's story for sure. You're looking at three guys on the screen, I guarantee you, who have wanted to take their life at certain points. I know that. Who have wanted to end it all. Who have said, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. But we asked for help. We got some truth in our life, and we're still struggling. We're not at some perfect place. We're just trying to keep fighting. So that's my hope. My hope is that asking for help involves you just not listening to your feelings, looking for some truth, and then just realizing it's going to be hard, man. It's going to be hard work. It's going to be hard work. It's really hard work. I have so many people roll into my office and they have a microwave mentality. They're like, hey, can you talk to us for 30 minutes and fix all our stuff? And I'm like, bro, you've screwed this thing up so bad, it's going to take you 2 years just to repair. And I'm not trying to be discouraging. I'm just being real with you. And they're like, yeah, but isn't there some book we can read? No, time. You just need time. And dude, some of you really need to hear that.
I can't even begin to tell you what's on my phone right now. If I pulled out my phone and read it to you, it says you can't fix it like you do instant oatmeal. You can't fix it. Like, it takes time. And I want to go back to that thing. So you're not weak for asking for help. It's actually a sign of your greatness. It's actually inside of us. It's part of what makes us amazing as humans, is we have this ability. But so we have a fight or flight mechanism, right? And so for most of us, we feel like we have to do something. And stay in this very moment with me for just a second. Just allow the wave of emotions to hit you, right? You have a pulse, your heart's beating, you have men in your life, if you're a man right now, who care and love about you deeply. And this is an opportunity for you to say, hey, you know what? It's time that I stop running from the truth. It's time for me to actually do something. This is my closing pastoral moment. I've never been asked to close before as a pastor, but I'm preaching right now.
I'll play the music.
But as a man, right now, your obligation, your opportunity lies within the truth in which you've been telling yourself lies. And I want you to speak your truth today. If you're sitting there going, man, I need help, I'm like, then ask for it. When I was still enough in the moment, I heard a whisper. I heard a thing saying, you're not alone. That's always been kind of the background noise for me, is like, you're not alone. And these two men said it today, not just me. So I know for a fact that in us is something rooted. I call it the Holy Spirit, but I know for us, there's an opportunity for you today to rise up. When I was $1 million in debt, my family was completely over. I didn't think my business was going to work. I thought everything, addictions, all of that took over. The second person to show up was Brandon. And he wasn't there to go, hey, you got any money you can donate to?
Thanks for listening to the Networking Remote. Remember, you are not alone. Stay connected.
He calls himself a sin bag. I call myself a sin bag. And I've gone through life knowing that, you know what, that was what I was. It's not who I am today. Who I am today is somebody who loves and cares about others. But I first had to love and care about me. And I didn't know how to do that at first. And so both of these men today told you exactly what. If you're watching right now, here's your truth. You're not alone. There's people in this world who really, really care. Raise your hand today and get some help. And to you two, thank you so much for coming on here and just pouring out who you are as humans. I know it's a little different than sitting up and delivering a message, but the best message that I heard this morning is at the core of who we are. We're human beings with a heartbeat, and we're out to help the world be a better place. And I think that's a magical thing that so many of us, we lose hope and we lose sight of, that we think, pastors and these guys, they just want our money. I'm like, no, they want your heart. And they want your heart to be as pure as possible. And they want to help you understand that, you know what, we're going to walk life together. So Brandon, on behalf of you, thank you so much for being here. I know it's going to be a fun year rooting for your Seattle Seahawks. So I hope that you have a great year rooting for your Sonics, and that Ichiro, whatever his name is, comes back for his, 30th season for the Mariners. So I appreciate it. I hope you and your family stay really healthy and well during this time. You're in Texas, is that correct?
Yep.
And Ryan, on behalf of you, Tammy, and your entire family, you're hunkered down here in Colorado, doing the best you can. I know there's a lot of amazing stuff going on, but I just want to say thank you for your time today. When coffee is available, I want to get a link, and I want to share Ryan's wife, Tammy, is one amazing coffee grinder and maker. She has come up with some really cool stuff. What's the name of the coffee?
We have different flavors. We have the Serenity blend, the Upon Awakening blend, the Sober AF blend.
I like that one.
How do you get the coffee?
She gets it from all over the world. She makes sure all the coffee beans are ethically sourced. She roasts all the beans herself. She knows some of these farmers. We have friends down in Guatemala who are part of this, and so we know they're getting ethical wages and being treated fairly. So it's a pretty cool project that she started, and coffee's a big deal in our lives.
I don't know what I would do without my cup of joe. So, hey, how do we get more information about the coffee really quick? We'll put it in the show notes.
You know, we're expanding it as we speak, and actually our new app and website will be launching in the next. I'm just getting emails as I'm sitting here about it, but in the next couple of weeks. So,
awesome.
But if you go to our Facebook page, connect with us there, or you can connect with us on our website. We can hook you up. She is roasting coffee every single week, so it's probably the freshest cup of coffee you would ever get, and it tastes good.
I love it. All right. On behalf of Brandon Beard, Ryan Canaday, myself, Tony Grebmeier, this has been another episode of Networking Remote 2020. And until next time, no matter where you go, no matter what you do, choose to make today the absolute best day of your life.
Thanks for listening to the Networking Remote. Remember, you are not alone. Stay connected